as we hear again this very familiar story of Jesus. I was listening the other day to a program that talked about storytelling and how at different times in our lives we might find ourselves identifying with someone different in the story, or find a particular character that we had never found much interested in, all of a sudden interesting to us because something is connecting about ourselves with the story. And no doubt as Jesus told these stories, in every one of them, somehow he wants his hearer to engage in them. Somehow he wants the hearer to listen to how he sort of opens up the action and the characters. What did these three men who happened upon the victim in the ditch know? They all knew the same thing. The priest, the Levite, the Samaritan knew precisely the same thing. There's a man in the ditch. I don't know where he's from. He was stripped, so there is nothing, no identifying clothing to sort of say he was of a particular tribe or a particular area. I don't know if he's one of us or if he's someone else. I don't know if he is dead or isn't dead. And I don't know if those people who beat him up are very close anymore or not. But they also know that whoever it is in the ditch, all three of them know he was made in the image and likeness of God. All three of them know that the law tells them to love their neighbor as themselves. All three of them know that Moses said, you are supposed to make these laws and these commandments a part of your very being, a part of your heart, so that everything you do comes out of the intent of God's love and his law that helps us to show that love. All three of them knew that if they touched his blood, they would be unclean. And if he was dead, even more unclean. But all three of them, as Jesus tells the story, are headed away from Jerusalem. So purity is not particularly an issue. They're not heading to the temple to celebrate some religious ritual where they need to be mindful of their purity. That excuse is gone. None of them knew whether or not he was their neighbor. The lawyer or the scholar of the law who asked Jesus the question won't even say the word Samaritan when Jesus asked him, who of these three was neighbor to the victim? He can't even say the Samaritan, because for him, the idea that a Samaritan could be the hero of the story goes against everything he had been raised to believe. And the Samaritan, certainly, probably in his heart of hearts, wasn't a neighbor, and certainly was not someone he wanted to be his neighbor. But Jesus, responding to his desire to be right with God, reminds him even he is your neighbor, and even more importantly, if you allow him to be neighbor, you will experience the presence of God in ways you never would before. Jesus' story challenges you and me to say that our respect, our regard, our compassion, our love, our active love, is to go out to the other simply because the other is like you and me, made in the image of God, loved by God, and in need of love from the people of God so that he or she might experience the kingdom of God. And also, Jesus' parable reminds you and me that we are at times also the one in the ditch, the one in need of some compassion and some mercy, some outreach, some respect and regard. And if we are going to decide who we will let reach out to us and care for us, then we will not experience as much of God's love and God's compassion and healing that there is for us to experience. What made the Samaritan respond differently from the priest and the Levite? Jesus' story. What might make you and I respond like the Samaritan? I know you can, because I have felt it. And I hope, in some small way, you have felt it from me too. When I came here 5 years ago, I had pretty much just come through a ditch. It was a difficult time in my life. And you reached out, and you welcomed me, and loved me. And because of that, I can move on in love and confidence in the Spirit that this new challenge is one the Spirit, through the bishop and his personnel board, are offering me. And I will take your love with me